Hi, Fiber Friends. My name is Michelle Delahanty, and this is episode 1 of my new podcast, which has been a long time coming, Stashdown. So, I have been thinking about doing this podcast for a little over 2 years. Yeah, a little over 2 years now. And I'll get into the history of the idea of that at some point, but it's just, you get a good idea and you even talk it up to people and they're like, yeah. And then you just don't do it, you don't do it. It's just, life is in the way, and, I do have a full-time job. I have to pay for this stash somehow. But I find myself with some time today in an empty house. And so I decided, what the heck? I got a little time to kill. I'm gonna sit down and do this. So here we are, finally getting this maiden voyage on the water and starting episode 1 of Stashdown. So what are we going to be doing here? So obviously, I called you my fiber friends, and here's the thing. I don't know anything from nothing about this. So once this is filmed and I go to upload this to YouTube, that's when I'm going to figure out what I'm doing. I have no tech savvy. I have no equipment, no editing skills whatsoever. And until this takes off, maybe, I probably always do this just on my phone with a light and a tripod in my fiber studio in my house. And that's as fancy as it's gonna get. But it would be really great if I said, hey, fiber friends, it's Michelle. Welcome to the next episode of Stashdown. And then I had this fantastic intro and some pictures of my house and my fiber studio, which I like to call one of the extra rooms on the second floor. That's what we're calling it. It's my fiber studio. Sometimes I say the fiber room, when I'm not feeling fiber bouge, and I'm just like, yeah, it's up in the fiber room, the fiber studio, excuse me. Pictures of finished objects or works in progress or whatever. But you're getting raw iPhone podcast, and we all have those podcasts that we love, right? My inspo for this podcast is just that, just people who just turn on their camera. They don't edit. Sometimes they ramble for a long time. You know who you are, and I love you. I'm not necessarily going to be given advice, like, when I mean advice, like teaching. I'm not a knitting teacher, or a spinning teacher, but I'm just here to chat, so we can be podcast knitting pals, So what is this all about? Well, Stashdown is the title of this podcast, and the idea came to me. I'm just gonna get into it. The idea came to me when I was coming home from a retreat. It was the first and so far only dataless fly-in Louisville, Kentucky in early March of 2023. Fantastic time. Sometime I'll tell stories, and if I could ever get a picture up on the screen with the help of maybe my daughter who does edit videos for YouTube on her own channel, the infamous picture of me with my haul from, we'll talk about that later, but it was that haul, that fiber haul from that fantastic weekend, that gave me the idea to talk about, to have a fiber podcast, a knitting, whatever your fiber medium, podcast, celebrating the stash, because at that point in time, I had already reached Sable, right? Stash acquired beyond life expectancy. And I really hadn't for fiber. I had more than I needed, because I hadn't really been spinning as much as knitting, because knitting's my main jam. Knitting's my girl. But I was getting there, but for the amount of time that I was spinning, I was getting there. But it wasn't like my yarn stash. But then I came home more than doubling my fiber stash. And I thought, because it was just, we'll talk about that later. I have to keep writing down things that we're going to talk about later, or I'll have to just, review things and talk about things later on a different podcast, different episode. But I thought, the original idea for this podcast, I was going to call it, Now What Do I Do With All of This Yarn and Fiber? That's a dumb name. And then it came to me. It's, we're talking about stashing down. We're talking about shopping our stashes for things. Now, I'm going to take and use some educated guessery and say the vast majority of those of us who knit, crochet, spin, weave, whatever fiber art suits your fancy, we have a stash. Most of us have some semblance of a stash, more than just 5 or 10 projects out from where we are. I'm sure there are some very monogamous knitters who maybe have a project ahead, but I feel like those probably on one end of the bell curve. I am on the other end of the bell curve, and I'm afraid that I'm a little bit on the opposite extreme of the spectrum there, but it would be lovely to find out that there are people who have more stash than I do, but I feel like I could take the Pepsi challenge with most people. Anyway, those of us who have whatever stash for you is a glorious stash, or a carefully curated collection of fiber and yarn, or an embarrassing amount of yarn and fiber, we're gonna flip any negative thought about that, and any negative perception that we're getting from others who want to talk down to us, drag us down about our love for fiber and yarn, and just embrace that and think of it as divine and sacred, that we have this beautiful, colorful, textural, we could be spending our money on way worse things. Am I right? And whether your stash is made up of yarn from big box stores, because certainly there are good quality yarns there too, or whether you're a yarn slob. It's not yarn, did I just say yarn slob? I said yarn slob. I'm not a yarn slob. I'm a yarn snob. I think it would be very un-fiber community of me to accuse anybody of being a yarn slob for whatever reason, however we would define that. So we're just gonna, that's where I would edit. Like if I could edit, I would just edit that little Freudian slip out. Yarn snob. It's my subconscious telling me how it really feels about the fact that I have an entire closet over there. Someday we'll do a tour. Hi. Love you. So anyway, celebrating our stash, enabling each other to shop our stashes, get reacquainted with what's in there. That doesn't mean though that we have to stop supporting our local yarn shops and our favorite, dyers and their websites, all of that. Because some of us have just recently realized in the last few months that Spin Cycle Yarns actually accepts shop pay on their website. So we're not going to talk about how many shipments I've received from Spin Cycle since April, and we're definitely not going to talk about how many since January. So anyway, so yes, this does not mean we're going to talk about stashing down, and from here on out, we're not gonna acquire anything else. I'll talk about acquisitions. You can chat in the comments. Tell me what your favorite acquisitions are that from recent ones. We'll talk about all kinds of things. Really, we'll just talk about our mutual love for fiber in whatever form, whether it's in this form, Oh, that's good for snarfing. That's rich in lanolin right there. Or, you know, yarn. Whatever your stash is comprised of, we're going to celebrate it. We're going to celebrate you and your stash, me and my stash. It's going to be great. I will, on the Stashdown, the concept of Stashdown, I'm planning to like have Stashdown alongs, you know, UFO alongs, whip alongs, things like that. I have an idea in mind for the first one that I'm going to do, but right now I am working on a test knit, which means I recently acquired more yarn in the last week. Because, you know, I can't help it if this designer said that they wanted us to use yarn, a particular kind of yarn, a particular weight of yarn, you know, and I don't know if I have that in my stash. When am I supposed to go look? So I ordered some yarn that, in my defense, it's the yarn that the pattern is named after, and which is Foxy Lady, from Farmer's Daughter Fibers, and I've recently discovered that I really like their yarn too. And in fact, I'm taking my son to Washington State in less than 2 months, on August 1st. It is August 15th, the 16th, something like that. My baby is leaving me. And I'm driving him and his girlfriend, and my daughter is going with us so that I have somebody to drive back with, and we can treat this like our summer vacation, our family vacation, out to Washington State via Montana. And it just so happens, and I actually didn't know this until after we had already booked our first place that we're going to stop for a few days in Montana, that it looks to be less than an hour from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers brick and mortar, which is super exciting. And just a warm up, because if you know, you know what's in Washington, and that would be the Spin Cycle Yarns brick and mortar. So I'm coming your way. I said, kids, we are not going to be that close to Spin Cycle in the same state for a few days doing the vacationing thing, and I'm not gonna drive up there and spend some time in the store. So there's probably good cafes and stuff in the area, some shops. Probably gonna be cute. You can just go walk around there, and I'll text you when I'm done, because I'm going in there and shopping. So now I get to shop in both of those places in person. Listen, I need whatever self-medication on this trip that I can muster. There's gonna be a lot of knitting, because, you know, there's gonna be 3 of us driving, and then 2 on the way back. We'll just take shifts, so we're gonna be driving from Wisconsin all the way to Washington, and on the way back we're gonna be going down to Colorado and back to Wisconsin from Colorado. So gonna be a lot of knitting time, and time to just sniff my yarn that I buy, because it's gonna be glorious. Yeah, so I need to self-medicate in that way, because I'm gonna be coming home to an empty nest, which is sad. So, what should we be saying right now? I have a very full nest to my right through that next door in this room. Whoops. Careful, there's a tripod there, which I'm sure would be lovely, and maybe a dopamine hit, because some of that stuff's been in a bin for a while and I might have forgotten that I had it, and I'll be so excited to see it again. But there's no dopamine hit, right? Like going to the yarn store. And going to the yarn store, I mean, these are like, this is sort of, am I right here? This is sort of for a fiber junkie, fan of yarns like this. It's kind of like meeting a rock star. Even if, you know, I don't get to meet the people, and it's, you know, they're not there or whatever, it's their store. And I get to say, I was at the Farmer's Daughter Fiber Shop. I was at the Spin Cycle Yarns brick and mortar store. And, you know, like, kids are gonna be like, I have no idea who this is. Like, who cares? They'll just know I'm very happy and I'm on a yarn high. So we will definitely have an episode following that trip so that you can see how much more my stash has grown. I'll try to be good. Try to be good. So, yes, so I was at this this retreat with Daedalus. I am a Daedalus girl. This is one of my 2 birds. This is Maleficent, a sparrow named Maleficent. I also have a starling, and her name is Ursula. So, I do have a traditional treadle wheel. It is a Spinolutions treadle wheel that I cannot, I'm sorry, Ingrid, remember the model number of, but she's beautiful. She just doesn't get a lot of attention because, number one, I don't spin as often as I want to. Number 2, I love my birds. So one of these days I'm gonna get back to it and see it. Now that I have muscle memory for drafting, try to add the feet back. I did try that recently, and it wasn't as, now this is easy as I thought it was gonna be. Anyway, I also have some drop spindles. Spinning is kind of my number 1B, whereas knitting is number 1A. I do love to spin. I haven't been spinning nearly as long, by a long shot, but I love it. I don't have a giant repertoire of, I really just do short forward worsted drafting. I haven't done long draw yet, but the more time I spend with my wheels, the more I will branch into things like that. But I kind of have my comfort zone, and I have not only actually plied yarn and have yarn from what I've spun, but I have a finished project and a partially knit project with some of my other yarn. So I wouldn't say I'm a baby spinner, but I'm just kind of a, how do I want to put it? Like a, sometimes I spin, but mostly I knit. But I love spinning a lot, and I really wish that I could like double my time of my day that I spend with fiber, usually at the end of the day, so that I can like do both. But I'm usually either working on something that I'm like really wanted to get through, or a gift knit, or right now, like I said, I'm doing a test knit. So I have to keep remembering to look at the green dot right here so that I'm not looking off over here. Who's she talking to? She's not talking to me. She's talking over there in the corner. Brand new. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Yeah, so mainly this is gonna just be chit-chatting and talking about stashes, and maybe some of what drives the next one will be things that people say in the comments. So I would love it, as they say on YouTube, if you'd hit like and subscribe, and please comment and introduce yourself. Tell me what your fiber medium is, maybe what some of your vices are. Let's talk about vices. Yarn and fiber. Color. If it smells like lanolin, it could be the most butt ugly color, but if it had the best lanolin smell, I'd be like, this is the most beautiful yarn. Am I the only weirdo who does that? I literally walked around. I belong to Madison Knitters Guild. Shout out to Madison Knitters Guild. I live outside of Madison, Wisconsin. The last knit-in that we had, which used to be our big annual event that the guild put on, the last one that we had a couple of years ago, I'm gonna forget who the dyer was. 316? Is that a thing? Anyway, I literally walked around talking to my other friends that were there vending with my face in this hank of yarn. I could not stop smelling it. It was just like the best thing. I love the smell of lanolin. It's so good. In fact, when I moved in to this house, which I'll talk about later, and have this space for my crafting, and a whole closet to hold all of that stuff. The next week after I had that all in there, I came up here and I was like, this whole room smells like lanolin. It's lovely. It does. It smells like lanolin in here, and in the closet especially. So I just love it. I love it. Where was I? This is gonna happen. What was I talking about? I'll have to go back and watch the video and then finish that conversation in the next episode. Yeah, I lost it. Maybe I'll have some tea and remember. I don't remember. Anyway, no one wants to just see somebody sitting around sipping tea, not even knitting on a knitting podcast. Dumb. I think I was talking about, vices. Lanolin smell, vice. See, it's the tea. Earl Grey, in case you were wondering. Thank you, Earl. Honey Gold Acres. I'm not, no one's sponsoring me. Obviously, that's not going to be, anyway. I think you're supposed to say that on YouTube. No one's sponsoring me, but I'm going to talk up my faves. Honey Gold Acres. Love that fiber. She vends at our local stuff, our Madison Knitters Guild. The Knit-In was one of the first places I came across her fiber, and then she came to Wisconsin Sheep and Wool last year, and that's where I bought a bunch of her stuff. And then she was supposed to vend at one of our meetings this spring, and ended up not being able to come. And as I sat down at the table, I thought I knew the two vendors that were going to be there, and somebody said, Honey Gold Acres is supposed to be here tonight, and I was like, oh my god, no. I wasn't going to buy anything. So then I got up and I went into the vendor area and I was like, wait a minute, where is she? Oh my god, thank God. Because I was ready to just be like, don't need it. Love it though. Her fiber is amazing and I have no power against her fiber. So I love her fiber for someone who's semi-local to us. I can't remember. Midwest, but I can't remember if it's Iowa. I'm having a brain fart. Anyway, fiber. I do the Three Waters Farm. I keep wanting to call it Three Rivers Farm. I have to look at the label. Three Waters Farm. I was on there doing their fiber club along with Hello Yarn for a while, and then after I came home with all of that fiber from Kentucky, I was like for a couple months after that, I got, my subscriptions from two places, and I was like, I have to stop. I have to stop these subscriptions for a little while. And just recently, I also had a little diarrhea of the checkbook with Three Waters Farm and bought a whole bunch of stuff because they have this tactic where they post their beautiful fiber on Instagram. How dare they? How dare any of these people do this? Because that's where I just go, oh god. Okay. And I don't even know what I want to use it for. So then I'm like, probably a sweater. How many? Oh, they only have 3. What goes with this? Combo spin. What else could go with this? Take 6. I'll take 6 of your braids. I beg of you. Honestly, please keep doing that because it's beautiful. But yeah, so Three Waters Farm. Gosh. Oh. It fell out of my brain. Hip strings. Hip strings, Jill. If you happen to be doing me the honor of watching this, God, I love your fiber. Oh, oh. Okay, I will just tell a story so that I'm not just sitting here talking about, this is, you know, this could be the Jerry Seinfeld of fiber podcasts. I'm not gonna lie, just talking about nothing, but it all has to do with fiber and yarn. I will tell a story. I did talk about, I went to the Daedalus retreat. I did talk about how, like, I more than doubled my yarn stash there. I did talk about how that whole situation gave me the idea for this podcast, for better or for worse. So I had heard of hip strings through my friend Emily, and knew she was going to be there. And when they were putting the vendor hall together the day before it opened, we kind of like got in because we were, you know, because I was with Emily and Emily's friends with Jill. So we went in there and we were helping her hang some stuff up, and mainly I was just like, anyway, I saw some fiber braids of hers in the colorway Haunted. Now, most of you don't know me yet, unless you know me, and thank you for being the 3 people who are watching this podcast. Hopefully it's more than that eventually. Tell your friends. That's my jam. That's my jam. Just the name. It could have been, again, an ugly color, horrible looking colorway, but nothing that she produces is horrible. And you call it Haunted or witching something. Here's my money. I'll take 10. Probably gonna make a sweater for, I don't know, Paul Bunyan. So I knew that the next day I was going to own some of that fiber, but I had to sit on it because the vendor hall did not open until the next morning. And I think it, like, I don't know, after the first couple of sessions, and this is like a very intimate, you know, I can't remember how many people were there, like, I don't know, 50 maybe, it might have been less, or somewhere around there. We'll say 50. Very small retreat, right? We're all eager because there's like, people know who these, you know, there's lots of people there. People were just dying to get to their shops and stuff. So, but here's me going, I know there's more, but I'm going to hone in. I'm going to like make a beeline for hip strings and get some of this Haunted fiber and probably like 10 other things from her. So that night I had a dream that we got to the vendor hall in the morning and we lined up, because we did. Like, that came true. We knew we were gonna do that. Everybody's gonna get in line to like get in there ASAP. But I had a dream that I got there right away after everything opened and nothing was left. Like, it got picked over so fast. And I was just like panicking in my dream that I didn't get this Haunted fiber and that, like, I lost out on it. And then what did I do? I freaking knee-jerked, and I just, like, thank God for that we ended up driving. Well, we drove, and I ended up driving my car, which is, you know, a small SUV, so a lot of trunk space. Because if it had been anybody else's car, I would have felt like so embarrassed to just be like, sorry, here's more. Can we shove it in? I'll wear it on my head, you know, like whatever. But yeah. Of course, that wasn't a problem. And it definitely wasn't a problem for me because I came home with half the damn vendor hall. But came home with quite a bit of Jill's fabulous fiber. So, love me some hip strings. Thank you so much for your beautiful, beautiful fiber. Yarn vices. Well, recently, Spin Cycle. Now, I resisted the Spin Cycle for a long time, and I love you guys, but you do know that your 50 gram skeins are as much as high-end 100 gram skeins, right? but I love you. And it's like Disney. We'll talk about that again sometime. Once you're hooked on it. I mean, look, the first time that I really started, I was a get stuff at Michael's girl from like at least the first half of my knitting life, right? At least the first half. Actually, it wasn't until, you know what it is, like the majority of my knitting life, okay? Because let's be honest, it wasn't until right before COVID that this stash happened. COVID is when my stash went crazy town. Put your name in the, like, raise your hand or some kind of emoji. Like the mask emoji, the emoji with the mask, put that in the chat if that's how it would happen for you. Like, you probably were under control, like seriously under control with when you bought yarn and how much you had that you weren't working on yet, and then COVID, right? That's what happened for me. I had just started, like, you know, I'd gotten some yarn at the knit-in, you know, for a few years by that point. So I had a stash, but this was the stash that I had. And how about a yarn ball emoji? Well, people may have already put yarn ball emojis in. Let's say jazz hands emoji. If when you first started buying good yarn, the good yarn at, you know, like a Sheep and Wool Festival or some other, you know, yarn vending opportunity, you bought single skeins or cakes of yarn, maybe two. You might have bought a kit, but you bought it like this. This is so pretty. Oh my God, it's $35. I'll take this one. Bless your heart. What you making with that? I mean, yes. Are there one skein projects? Yes, absolutely. Listen, I knit primarily Andrea Mowry and Stephen West. Most of those aren't one skein projects. Most of those aren't two skein projects. Some of them are. Some of the cowls and stuff. So that's fair. I got a whole lot of yarn in my collection from the 2000 teens, from Madison Knitters Guild Knit-In, where I was just like, this is a really pretty skein of yarn. So maybe one day all of those skeins of yarn will be like a sea glass sweater or something, or one of those Stephen West projects where you just grab yarn and keep on knitting. That's probably the best idea. So where are we? Oh, not too bad. Oh, I can see 33 minutes. Today is young, people. I can talk forever about knitting, so it's fine. It's fine. Strap in, get your popcorn, something to eat. We'll say hi to Earl here a second. You're getting cold, Earl, but you still taste good. Anyway. I lost it again. What were we talking about? Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Well, we were talking about Kentucky and vices and spin cycle. Oh, yeah, and buying with single skeins of yarn. So it was, I don't know, it was pre-pandemic, but I had started buying yarn like that, you know, the more hand-dyed yarns and things from more local dyers, or just, you know, not big box yarn, but just like a skein at a time, because it was more expensive. Like I can get 4 skeins at Michael's, at Joanne. Not anymore. Too soon. I was like, God, too rich for my blood. And love you guys. Have done some sample knitting for them since then, and I have a ton of it in there. So this is like this is old me, pre-yarn snob me thing that I'm sure I said out loud to one of my friends. But local dyer that I absolutely love, has my heart, Miss miss the brick and mortar store. Oh, Knit Circus. It was like walking into a rainbow. Where you would leave and your wallet would be lighter, but you would be happy about it. Yeah, I would love to just walk in. If I could just have one day with all the Knit Circus. And it's not enough. It's not enough at like Alpaca Fest. It's not enough at Chiba Mall because it's so small. I can miss all of that. Just walking in, it's like all the entire rainbow of all the solids, semi-solids, and then just if you know Knit Circus, you know. And it was literally like walking into a rainbow. And you're just so happy, and then you're just like, here, it's fine. But yeah, when I first saw it, everybody was talking about Knit Circus. It's from Madison, Knit Circus, it's great. And then I saw it, I was like, youch! Oh my God. But that's when I was still like, you know, buying the Michaels yarn and buying the Joanne yarn. And again, absolutely no judgment. We're judging no one for where you get your yarn, where your stash is from. You know, I do have a pin that says death before acrylic, but that's just my preference. It's fine. Like, if you're gonna make a baby blanket, all day with the acrylic, because that thing's going in the washing machine, you know? You know it is. You know, you'd just be like giving, and I'm the person who, the auntie who has given their nieces yarn blankies and sweaters. But you know, it's far enough away. I don't care if that thing's ruined or stained or whatever. It's fine. It's fine. No, it's fine. But you know, yeah. I remember when Knit Circus vended at a meeting for Madison Knitters Guild years ago, before I completely changed my tune and became a yarn snob, and I was just like, I would spend whatever on this yarn, it's fine. I was just like, God, oh my God, there's no way, why is that so expensive? Why? And then you knit with it and you're like, oh. And that was it. I'm pretty sure that was Knit Circus was my snobbiest snob yarn that I really started knitting with and being like, oh, that's different, it's better, of course it's better. And then I was convinced. And yeah, it was what, 2022 before I got COVID. That's not how COVID got me. COVID got me because, you know, we weren't going anywhere. We weren't spending money. But yes, I was. Oh, I need this Stephen West kit. Oh, here, I'm gonna get a whole shawl quantity of Knit Circus. I'm going to get, you know, and it was just like, that's where it started. But I was happy, man, and my knitting game changed. You know, probably for a lot of us. We need another emoji. Somebody pick an emoji for, yeah, that happened to me too. Like, I was a knitter. I was a legit knitter. And then COVID hit and my knitting game went pow, you know, and then my speed went up or whatever. Because, you know, all I did was eat. All I consumed liquid-wise was coffee, if it was before noon, Diet Coke, and Chardonnay for about 2 years. Every once in a while I'll be like, oh, what's in here? There's no flavor in that. God. And snacking it up, and yeah, and knitting. Not a lot of, I mean, man, my wrists, so in shape. Look at these babies. Look at these. Look at these wrists. That's COVID training. Fingers too. Fingers. Nimblest fingers. That's all COVID training. Knitting training in COVID. Yeah. From here up, not so much. Still as weak as ever. It's fine. But from here down, game changer. Yeah. So I would like to know, who's Sable, who achieved Sable because of COVID? Who's at Sable or beyond right now? So I said it before, and if you don't know, if you haven't heard the term Sable yet, no judgment. Not gonna be like, seriously, but okay, here we are. Stashdown, right? So we all need to know that Sable is stash acquired beyond life expectancy. So you got an amount of yarn in your closet, your house, your basement, wherever you keep it, that I'm sorry to tell you, you're not going to get through all of it before you die, even if you live to be 100. Now, I am serving 2 to 3 life sentences of Sable right now. And sadly, I'm hoping that this at least skips a generation, and my grandchildren, that I live to see them old enough to hold knitting needles so that I can teach them, because neither of my ingrateful children care about knitting or spinning or even crochet, which I don't do, but you can do that with yarn. And you know, when I die, I don't have anybody to give this yarn to that I'm biologically related to. So it's probably all gonna go, I don't know, to the guild or whatever, but it's gonna go somewhere. I will literally need to add my stash to my will so that it doesn't just get thrown to the 4 winds or given to somebody who is definitely not worthy of my stash. My children would be, and I tell them all the time, you stand to inherit so much. An enviable stash of yarn and fiber. If you would just pick up a fiber hobby. And they're both very talented, very artistic. We're a very arty family. I know this sounds really weird, but we were very into theater. Yeah. I know that's shocking, but yeah, I mean, my daughter is a beautiful artist. She is an outstanding, like, she picked up, and okay, this is a fiber, I consider this a fiber medium, okay, because it is fiber. Cross stitch. She's an amazing cross stitcher. Now, she's only worked on it, well, no, she hasn't. I shouldn't say that. She has done some smaller projects, but she has this one enormous project that she'll probably be working on until she's my age before she finishes it, but hopefully once, you know, she's finished with college and she's out in the workforce and everything, she'll have time. No, she should, because she's finishing up her music education degree and teaching program at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and has 1 semester left to do her student teaching. Hi, Emma. You should have time for that kind of thing once you're out of school and you're not having to work 2 jobs, and hopefully you get a good teaching job, teaching orchestra or choir, whatever best opportunity you have. And yes, then you start having time for things like that. And maybe it's not going to take you until you're my age to finish your huge Pokemon cross stitch. I mean, her Pokemon project brings all the people to the table at the cafe when she's working on it. And usually we'll go out and do that kind of thing, and she'll bring that and I'll knit. And I mean, total strangers, kids, people of all ages, they're coming to the table and they don't care. They're like, oh, you're knitting? That's nice. This is fantastic. You know, like, I could be working on the most gorgeous, like, 10 color Stephen West thing that's just like, holy crap. And they'd be like, that's nice, you're knitting. Oh my God! Is this all first generation? How long have you been? How big is this supposed to be? And I mean, it's literally like this, it's huge. And she's maybe a third into it, and she's been working on it for like 3 years. But it's incredible. I'm not into Pokemon, and I'm like, it's stunning. I would hang that in my house because it's so cool and colorful. It's going to be really, really cool, like a tapestry kind of thing when she's done with it. And yeah, she better frame that thing when she's done, because it's like, it's frame worthy. It's super, super cool. And she's just like raw dawning it off of her, like, her phone. and hasn't missed a mark. You know, when I was cross stitching, I had to have like the board with the magnet and the highlighter. I'm done with these little things. She's just like, she finishes well, not like that. She finishes like a guy, and then the next guy, and then the next guy, and then the next guy. But she doesn't like. It's like no, you know, no effort whatsoever. She's just doing it. She's a wonderful artist too. She has been since she was this big. She came out with brushes and pens in her hand and just has always been a fabulous artist. She doesn't. Artist, like artist is many things. She draws. Excuse me. She does a lot of. Now she's doing a lot of more digital stuff, but she does like to do, you know, more traditional on paper. But does a lot of character, like her own OG, like her own characters and things like that. I feel like they're kind of anime, but what do I know? I'm just the mom who's only sometimes cool. And so she's like, it's not anime. I'm like, to me, I mean, it's okay. If I was going to explain it to another Gen Xer who didn't know much about animation or drawing or manga or anime, but they knew of it, I'd be like, her style is kind of anime-like, adjacent. And, you know, I think they would see it and be like, okay, yeah, kind of, you know, because I wouldn't say it's cartoony. It doesn't look like a cartoon. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, it's very cool. Very proud of her. My son used to draw too, and he got very good at it. And he just kind of, he doesn't do it much anymore, but I'm sure if he picked it up, he would be just as good. So, you know, I'm sure, since they both have very talented hands with the drawing and things like that, that they could. And my son plays a freaking fantastic guitar, holy crap. So again, you could knit, you've got the manual dexterity, children, and you've got a closet full of yarn I'd be happy to share with you at some point. Can't just go in there randomly and pick stuff, I gotta prove it, but I could set you up. It's so sad. So I'm counting on my grandchildren. They're just gonna have to have kids until one of them is a knitter. And then that child's gonna be my favorite one. It's grandma's favorite. And that one's gonna inherit my stash. Anyway. Yeah, so I think the next episode I'm going to start talking about my first sort of, I got a couple of ideas. So those of us who are not monogamous knitters, those of us who are polyamorous knitters, monogamous in life with my human, my person Tom, to the core. Not monogamous in knitting, not monogamous in spinning. More monogamous in spinning than in knitting, I have to say. Yeah, I actually don't like the idea. You know, I have like, especially with some of the fiber that I've recently picked up, that I've just like, oh my God, I'm gonna do a compost with this, and oh my God, this colorway is awesome. I have to have a sweater body, blah. No, you don't. Get in there and get your Kentucky stash out and start spinning on that. Yeah, so, but those of us who do this, those of us who have this affliction, this beautiful, wonderful, creative, lanolin smelling, rainbow of color affliction, probably also have, unless you're, you know, I can't imagine, but there are combinations of all kinds of things, right? So there's a monogamous knitter with the stash that's like your stash is like, you picked up yarn for your next project and you're like 3/4 done with the project you're working on because you're monogamous and you're very regimented and good. And maybe you either, so obviously I appreciate, and please, you know, don't be thumbs down at me, please, if you are of the mind that we should be, you know, we should not be doing this, not over consuming, not, I get all that. I get that and I appreciate that, and I support you in your approach to life and fiber collection and knitting. That's not how I roll. I'm not going to judge you. Please don't judge me and those of us who operate in the way that I do. I also am supporting my local yarn shops doing this, and my favorite dyers and yarn producers and fiber producers doing this. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm cool with it, and I'm also cool with people who don't over consume. I shouldn't even use air quotes. I'm over consuming because I'm not, you know, I just said I have probably like 2 or 3 life sentences of Sable going on in there. But I'm happy about it. And I could be spending my money on worse things. I could have many worse bodily harming, family harming vices than fiber and yarn, right? And so could you. So could you. Oh my gosh. Pausing for a little break with Earl. There are those of us who are monogamous knitters with a very small stash. You can still enjoy Stashdown. Because you're stashing down. You got that next project, that's your stash. And you are gonna stash it down. You're winning the stash down. And that's okay. There are those of us on the other side of the spectrum who are never gonna get through it. Even if we were granted eternal life with being financially comfortable, living wherever we wanted, and all we had to do for the rest of our lives was knit our stash. Two ends of the spectrum. Don't think that I don't fantasize about that, especially when it's a very hard day at work. Just wish that I could get paid this much money to sit and knit and go to Disney World. Those of us somewhere in the middle who have a pretty big stash, a lot of projects going on, we probably also have a lot of whips, a lot of UFOs, a lot of works in progress, a lot of unfinished objects for those of you who are just jumping on that fiber bandwagon. So, and a lot of, I mean, it's really like a whip. I feel like, let's talk about this, okay? So your current project, my current project that is like my, right now, what I'm working on, what I have to focus on because I have a deadline is my test knit. And I'll show you guys a test knit when it's ready for prime time, which it's not going to be until the end of July. Once that happens, I'll wear it. I'll be like, this is it. Gotta check this out. She's fantastic. Yes. So you got your current project that you're actively working on. And then you've got your other whips that are your kind of other projects. Like right now, for example, I started the swatch for this the other day. And while it was blocking, I went back to my other current project, which is another t-shirt. Spoiler alert, this is a t-shirt, this test knit. It's a little tee with cap sleeves. Right now, when I get on, like this is my second test knit ever, but when I've done like samples and like samples, I miss doing samples for Knit Circus because I do love you guys, love. And I'm over that whole you're expensive thing because obviously I don't care about that anymore. I should, but yeah. So if I have something like this, focusing on that completely, but you know, a lot of times I have like 2 or 3 really active works in progress that I'm working on. But then you kind of, I feel like that's a whip. UFO, you could say they were the same thing, unfinished object. I feel like that's kind of like, you probably haven't worked on that one. If it's a UFO, you probably haven't worked on that one for at least a matter of months. Now that's debatable. Give me your opinions in the down below. But I'm gonna say at least 6 months. If you haven't touched it if it's like not only been in the project bag zipped up and you haven't looked at it, but it's been in a drawer or your closet or wherever it is you keep projects for 6 months or more, that's a UFO. And if it's been longer than that and you've kind of forgotten about it, or you just like it's in jail, then it's like a languishing UFO. So one of the things I'm thinking about doing right after I'm done with this thing is, and I've got to get back because I got another thing to talk about. I'm thinking about maybe the first whip along, which is really more like a UFO along, because I just defined it in the world according to Michelle. We'll do like a languishing project UFO along, and it will become a languishing whip along because we will be working on it, making progress, right? So I might pull out, if I had to choose one, I know which one I would choose, but only because like I feel like I have to. Like I feel like I have to choose that one because it's like the one that's like I know is in there. And I like it was a pattern that when I saw it when it came out, when Stephen West released it, I was like, that is freaking gorgeous. And I'm gonna go buy yarn right away for it. And I did at knit night, like the next knit night. It was like probably 2 days later or whatever. I was like buying yarn for it and starting it. And then it pissed me off so bad. And that is the Cable Trellis Shawl by Stephen West. It's a cool freaking pattern. First of all, the yarn that I bought for it, I loved it in the hanks. I think I was always like, when I buy yarn at knit night, we're always talking. We're like, oh, Michelle, what are you gonna? Oh, here's some choices. And so I get opinions, and I was happy with my yarn choices. Well, this was pre-Spin Cycle. This is Feederbrook, which is an absolutely fantastic substitution for Spin Cycle and more economical. Same kind of barber pulled, hand spun look. Love Feederbrook. But it's the same kind of thing where you can have two skeins, same colorway, and you're like, really? Huh. Okay. It's not knitting out like I thought. Like it's got a lot of brown in there. Like a lot of like, yeah, and that's not what I thought was gonna happen with these skeins. And so I don't tend to be a big color manager with those kind of color changing yarns. I just go with it. I have taken out a big chunk, but only if I know that I'm not going to run out of yarn. And I don't think I will, but so the pattern pisses me off sometimes, and it's really not the pattern. It's me not taking good notes and setting it down and then not remembering which way my cable is supposed to go or whatever. And it's really operator error. It's not the pattern. It is a very cool pattern, but it's also a little bit like, and people look at it when I show them that, oh my God, that's so pretty. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, when I picked these colors, these skeins, I was like super sure about this, but it's just, you know, the color changing yarn. Sometimes it's a crapshoot, and sometimes it matters like what end of the skein you start with. Yeah, so if I had to pick, I think it would be that one, but I'm gonna find like 3 of my most languishing whips, and I'm gonna show them. And we're gonna do a little poll, and the one that gets the most votes, this is assuming that people other than my 3 friends, and I have more than 3 friends. I have more than 3 friends in my bestie knitting group, but maybe 1 or 2 of them is just gonna be like, I'm not gonna watch that. She's just gonna be blah, blah, blah. And they'd be right. Anyway, just kidding. But yeah, so if we have enough people that are liking and watching and give a rip about this to vote, then I'll have you guys say, you guys will pick the one that I'm going to start with, and then we'll do a little languishing UFO along to help with Stashdown, because Stash is yarn we haven't started with, but it's also our languishing projects. That's part of our stash because it's not done, and there's a whole lot of yarn sitting in a cake waiting to be knit. It's part of your stash. So we'll do things like that on this podcast. And, you know, if we end up having enough of a following and I keep up with this because there's enough of a following and it's motivating and people care, then, you know, eventually maybe we'll do some surprises. We'll see. Gotta figure out how to do that. See how this takes off. I don't know how frequently I'll do these. We're at an hour. I feel like 5 minutes ago we were at 33 minutes. I gotta watch this back and be like, what the heck did I talk about? I know like 3 times I forgot the heck I was talking about. And I like faked it by like space case. But yeah. I'm gonna be that charming, how old is that person really? Because I angled the camera so that you can't, my turkey neck is not super obvious, so, she says she's Gen X, she's been knitting for so long, that quirky person who just stream of consciousness talks sometimes and apparently has a big stash. I don't know. She says she has a big stash, but I don't know. Hands are kind of small. Anyway, let's see how this takes off. I'd love to keep doing these and just sort of scratch the whole, I don't know, theater itch. I did get back into community theater recently, so maybe at the end I'll just talk about a non-knitting related thing. Recently I got back into community theater. I did theater tail end of high school, which I'd always wished I'd gotten into it sooner, but like senior year of high school before I really got into it. I'd been in marching band and choir and things like that, and dance. I was primarily what I did when I was a kid was a dance. I was a dancer. And got the bug at the end of high school, and pretty much immediately, well, again, ended up being more like end of freshman year. Freshman year, you're kind of figuring things out when you know, and I did some other things freshman year too, but finally started getting into theater again freshman year and end of freshman year, and hit it hard sophomore year. I was never not in a play sophomore year from the time the semester started in the fall all the way through the end. But that was kind of it, because then I kind of decided on what I was going to major in, and the amount of studying that I needed to do really wasn't conducive to doing any more theater, unfortunately. So I always thought I would get back to it. Plus, I mean, also the fact that I left out was that I wanted to be a theater major. I was a theater major for about a half an hour, and then my dad said, who's going to pay for that? One of the saddest times of my life. Anyway, it all worked out for the best. It did. But, because now, I don't have to worry about, you know, ever having been to a Diddy party, being involved in all of that, but I can still act, because community theater is all you need, right? So I did crew for The Play That Goes Wrong, which is, if you've never seen that play before and you have the opportunity, it is a freaking hysterical play. So funny, and it is so much fun to crew. So I ended up on the crew for that show with the Stoughton Village Players, next town over in Stoughton. And then I found out that Verona area community theater in the other direction was doing a senior version of Grease. Yes, I was eligible by about 9 days. So yeah, if that tells you anything. I'll reveal my age one day. Some of you know. Don't be telling them. So yeah, I played Grease. I played Rizzo in Grease, which was my #1 bucket list role. I'm having trouble all of a sudden. It's time to go because the words are coming very poorly. Yeah, I got to play Rizzo in Grease, and my God, it was the best experience. I would say definitely top 5 lifetime experiences, probably top 3, honestly. And what I didn't realize was going to happen, it shouldn't have surprised me, but what I really didn't realize was going to happen was how many friendships came out of it. Fantastic people. Both companies, both theaters, like, so nice. People were just like fantastic and really welcoming, and but to have that role this stage of my life when I never thought that was going to be an option, and just said, I'm gonna do this, like, I'm gonna do this, and I went for it and I did it, and I had so much fun and I made so many friends, and I'm so excited to do it again next year, the next show next year. So I do have other things that I do besides knit, but I usually take my knitting wherever I'm going to do the other thing that I'm doing. But yeah, this will scratch that itch a little bit in between shows, just because, I don't know, it's fun. If you're laughing, if you're enjoying yourself, if you want to come back because you like what you saw, then I did my job. And I got to just ramble on about my knitting life. So tell me about your knitting life down below if you don't know me and I don't already know about your knitting life. You can if you know me, because, technically you know about my knitting life and you've been listening to me for over an hour, so fair is fair. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for being with me this whole time. Hopefully you were knitting and enjoying it at the same time. And even though I was talking about knitting, I wasn't knitting at the same time. I probably would be frogging once we're done, or at least tinking. Especially since it's a test knit. I really can't screw it up. It's gotta be perfect. So anyway, I'm gonna shut up and get off this crazy thing because it's over an hour. I'll see you again soon. Sooner if we got a lot of views. So if you know me, and that's why you're here, talk about it. Get the word out. Pass it on. Because I'm going to load this into YouTube, like I said, and maybe it'll get out there to people who are interested in other knitting fiber podcast stuff. I don't know how this works. We're going to find out. We're going to find out. We're going to find out how it's received. That quirky knitter from Stashdown. Anyway. Love you. Happy fibering.